Episode 1. The Dawn of Desolation. In a sleepy neighborhood of Ames, Iowa, nestled between unremarkable brown brick bungalows and overgrown backyards, Mike Oxbig was a beacon of peculiarity. A lanky figure with disheveled dirty blonde hair and an unmissable Ahegao hoodie, he strode with an odd gait, a mixture of hesitancy from a childhood burn on his arm, and an unfounded swagger fueled by hours of video gaming and zombie movie marathons. His days were monotonous, a cycle of gaming, streaming horror flicks, and intermittent social interactions with a tight-knit group of online friends. Today was different, though. It started as any other, with Mike immersed in his virtual battles, his room dimly lit by the glow of dual monitors. However, the air felt denser, the usual hum of suburban life oddly subdued. As afternoon crept in, Mike's game was interrupted by a sudden power outage. His room plunged into darkness, the sudden silence unsettling. Peering out his window, the sky was a foreboding canvas of dark clouds, unusually oppressive for a spring day in Iowa. Frustrated, he decided to step outside, hoping to catch a neighbor for a chat about the power cut. As he wandered down his driveway, he noticed something peculiar. There were no sounds of children playing, no barking dogs, nor any of the usual signs of life. Houses stood silent, cars parked untouched. The oddity nudged at Mike's mind, a growing unease settling in. His phone, usually a conduit for news and updates, showed no service. The quiet was broken by a distant, haunting moan. The sound was chillingly familiar to Mike, not from reality, but from the countless hours spent in the grisly worlds of his favorite zombie movies. His heart raced. Could it be? Rounding the corner, Mike's eyes widened in disbelief. Shambling down the street was what could only be described as a zombie, its movements jerky and unnatural. Mike froze, his childhood fantasies clashing violently with the stark reality before him. The creature's groans grew louder, more urgent. With a jolt, Mike turned and ran back to his house, his mind racing. This couldn't be happening. It was like a scene right out of the movies he loved. Yet nothing had prepared him for the visceral fear of facing it in reality. Barricading himself inside, Mike's thoughts raced. He remembered all the survival tips he had laughed about with friends online, the make-believe plans for a zombie apocalypse they had detailed for fun. Now, he scoured his house for supplies, food, water, anything that could be used as a weapon. As night fell, the power remained off, and the unsettling moans and shuffles outside grew in number. Mike moved cautiously to his living room, peeking through the curtains. The street was now a slow parade of horrors, shadows under the moonlight, figures moving with eerie persistence. Taking a deep breath, Mike's initial terror began to morph into something else, a strange, adrenaline-fueled clarity. He wasn't just a gamer, a watcher of horror films. This was his moment to rise to an unimaginable challenge. His life of isolation and virtual battles had, in a twisted sense, prepared him for this. With a mixture of fear and excitement, Mike began to plan. He wasn't going to just survive. He was determined to become the hero he had always wanted to be in his imagined apocalypses. As the first night of the undead encroachment wrapped its dark arms around his small world, Mike Oxbig, the unlikely survivor, began his perilous journey into the unknown, a trembling but determined glint in his heterochromic eyes. Locked away in his dimly lit living room, Mike Oxbig's mind raced faster than his heart. He paced back and forth, each step a thud against the old wooden floor that seemed to echo the relentless steps of the undead outside. His house, once a sanctuary of solitude and virtual adventure, now felt like a fragile shell surrounded by a slowly tightening grip of horror. The flickering light of his flashlight cast long, ominous shadows across the room, making the familiar seem foreign. He thought about his parents, his distant friends. How were they faring? Were they safe, barricaded in their homes, or had they already fallen prey to the creeping doom outside? With a start, Mike realized he needed a plan. Not just any plan, a survival strategy. The movies, the games, they always had a base, a sanctuary. He needed to secure his home, make it impregnable. The task was daunting, but the adrenaline surging through him pushed the fear to the corners of his mind. First, the windows and doors. Mike scrounged through the garage, finding plywood, nails, and old tools, remnants of his father's abandoned woodworking hobby. The rhythmic pounding of the hammer became a cathartic release with each nail driven into the wood, securing his fortress. Night deepened, the darkness outside almost palpable. Mike's house was now a bunker, but he knew he couldn't stay hidden forever. He needed supplies, weapons, allies. The internet was down, phones dead. He was on his own. The next morning brought no relief, just the grim realization that the nightmare hadn't ended with the dawn. Eating a sparse breakfast of canned beans, Mike's mind turned to the local police station. Weapons, communication equipment, it would have what he needed. But it was a dangerous trek, nearly a mile away through what was now enemy territory. Determined, Mike fashioned makeshift armor from sports pads and thick jackets. He found his father's old baseball bat, the wood solid and reassuring in his hands. This would be his Excalibur. Before leaving, he scrawled a message on the inside of his door, a grim testament in case he didn't return. Mike Oxbig went to find help, if not back, survive. Stepping outside was a leap into a chilling abyss. The street was silent, the eerie quiet more terrifying than the moans of the night before. Abandoned cars and unkempt lawns passed in a blur as Mike moved with purpose, his eyes darting nervously. The walk was a test of nerve. Each rustle, each shadow made him jump, clutching his bat tighter. But the streets were strangely empty. Had the zombies moved on? Or were they lying in wait? Mike pushed these thoughts down, focusing on the task at hand. Reaching the police station required navigating through a small park, now an overgrown maze of shadows and whispering leaves. As he entered, the sound finally met him, the guttural, haunting moans of the undead. They were here, lurking among the trees. Mike froze, his breath caught in his throat. In the dim light, he saw them, 3 zombies, staggeringly close. His heart pounded, every instinct screaming to run, but he stood his ground. With a shaky breath, he tightened his grip on the bat and prepared to fight. The confrontation was chaotic and brutal. Mike swung wildly, fueled by fear and survival instinct. Each hit registered with a sickening crunch, but the zombies kept coming. It was only when he knocked one to the ground, its head hitting a rock, that he found his advantage. Breathing heavily, covered in grime and worse, Mike emerged victorious but shaken. The reality of his situation sunk in. He was alone, in a world that had turned against all humanity. But he had survived his first real test. He could do this. Finally reaching the police station, Mike found it abandoned, a shell of safety. He rummaged through, finding a radio, more weapons, and crucially, a set of keys to a police cruiser. His mind raced with the possibilities: search for survivors, gather a group, maybe find a way to communicate with the outside world. As he prepared to leave, the radio crackled to life, startling him. A voice, strained and anxious, called out, "Any survivors, please respond." Mike's heart leapt. There were others out there. He wasn't alone. Rushing to the radio, Mike grabbed the microphone, his voice shaky but hopeful. "This is Mike Oxbig in Ames, Iowa. I'm alive. I'm surviving. Where are you?" The voice responded, a beacon in the darkness. "Des Moines. We're holding a safe zone. Can you make it here?" Mike's mind reeled. Des Moines was over 30 miles away, a perilous journey. But there was hope, a chance not just to survive, but to live, to fight back. Clutching the keys to the cruiser, Mike made his decision. He would set out at dawn, armed with newfound purpose and a glimmer of hope. As he settled in for the night, fortified within the walls of the police station, Mike Oxbig felt a change within. From a solitary gamer to a survivor, a fighter, this was his new reality, his challenge. And he would meet it head on. This wraps up this episode of Last Stand, Chronicles of the Forsaken. The next episode will be determined by your decisions. Make sure to answer in the comments below to continue the story, and to like and subscribe for more tales. Until next time, bye.